Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Lavonne and I am here today to talk to you about labor. What is the definition of labor? How do you know that you're having a real contraction versus a false contraction? And then how do you even know that you are in labor? All that and more. Let's get started. And we're ready to go. Okay. So let's talk about what labor is. Labor, if you look it up in the dictionary, you're gonna find some very basic definition, something like when a woman has contractions that lead to the birth of the baby, which makes you think that labor, by definition, is contractions, but it's actually not. So I'm here to talk to you and kind of clarify what exactly labor is in a more tangible way so that when you actually start having contractions, you can distinguish between what is real contractions and then what is false contractions. So in order to get started, we need to bring it back to your anatomy class. You can see this is the form of a woman when she is not pregnant, obviously, okay? So let's go through some basics, and this may feel very elementary, but I wanna make sure that you understand where each piece is, okay? So you have up here, you have the stomach. The stomach is not where the baby grows. Despite people saying there's a baby growing in my tummy or there's a baby growing in my stomach, it's not in your stomach. Your baby would never survive in your stomach. Then you see all these beautiful intestines. Down here, this red piece is gonna be your magic location. So this is your uterus right here. There's nothing in there, it's just strictly a uterus. Now the uterus is a muscle, and so that's when we talk about contractions, we talk about muscle contractions. It's literally just a muscle tightening. So anywhere else in your body, if you tense up your body, you're gonna have a muscle contraction. Now with uterine contractions, when you're in labor, they happen automatically. So you're not gonna say like, oh, my uterus, tighten, have a baby. That's not how it works. So your uterus is a very important location. At the base of the uterus, it's technically a part of the uterus, but it has its own name called the cervix. And the cervix is going to be your magic location. It's the spot. We're gonna talk a ton about it, and I need you to understand exactly where it is because this is going to indicate labor. At the base of that is the vagina, so that's the canal, lower from the cervix and the uterus, and then obviously the outside world. So now let's look at it when you're pregnant. Now you can see what the pregnant person looks like. Probably a woman. Obviously there's a baby inside, right? So the uterus has grown up to 30 times its size. It now surrounds the baby, and remember, it's still a muscle, so when it contracts now, it's gonna contract on the baby, which the baby doesn't feel. Well, they may feel the squeeze, but they don't actually feel like the pain that you feel of the contractions. So it's gonna squeeze on the baby, and then look right down here to our magic location, that is your cervix. So your cervix is the plug keeping the baby inside until the time is right for it to come out. So what happens during labor? During labor, your body begins to have contractions that squeeze and put pressure on this cervix in order to thin it out or efface and dilate the cervix or open it up. So that's what you always hear in the movies, right? Oh, I was 6 centimeters when I got there. Oh, she's 10 centimeters. That just means that she's fully dilated. None of this is left. But if you look at this diagram, what do you see? The baby has to go from inside the uterus down into the vagina and to the outside world. But it can't go through the cervix. So you actually need the cervix to disappear or unplug the uterus in order to allow the baby into the vagina in order to come to the outside world. The process of that happening, what happens? It thins out and it opens up as the baby comes down in the pelvis is called labor. Okay? That is why there's so many women that may have contractions and they feel them really strong, but then they go to the doctor or they go to the hospital and they get checked and they say, sorry, it's not time for labor yet, right? How many of your friends have you heard that have been sent home from the hospital 1, 2, 3, 4 times? I've triaged patients in the hospital and it's like their 3rd time in. The only way for us to know what's going on with your labor is for a doctor or a midwife or a nurse to reach inside with their 2 fingers into your vagina and feel at the end of your vagina to know exactly what's going on with your cervix. And that is a skill that takes a lot of work and a lot of exams. So then you ask, when you're at home and you're having contractions, how in the world are you supposed to know when this is actually happening inside? You're not. The only way that you can know at home is based on your contraction pattern. Let's say you're at home and you're having some contractions. They're mild, they might be just tightening in your abdomen or your like tummy area, and they might be uncomfortable, they might feel like menstrual cramps. And so my advice for you is to ignore them till you can't ignore them anymore. Labor is labor. You know that it's a lot of work, that you aren't able to distract yourself with the contractions. When a contraction comes, it is all consuming and you can't hardly. Versus something where if you can carry on a conversation with your contractions / distract yourself, ignore it till you can't ignore it anymore. Let me play out a scenario for you. So let's say that you're 39 weeks pregnant, you started having some contractions, they started to get more and more frequent. Let's say you started timing them and they're every 5 minutes. They're starting to stop you in your tracks, you're starting to not be able to cope. You go into the doctor or you go into the hospital and they triage you, meaning they see what's up. And then they're gonna go in and they're gonna do a vaginal exam. So let's say I'm your nurse and I'm gonna say, hey, I checked your cervix and you're 1 centimeter, 50% effaced or thinned out and -2 station, meaning the baby's still kind of hanging out high in the pelvis. I might send you walking. So let's say after 2 hours, you come back from walking and we recheck you and I say you are 1 centimeter, 50% effaced, -2 station. Has the cervix changed? No, it did not change, which is okay. You're having contractions, but your cervix isn't changing, meaning it's not thinning out or opening up quite yet. Now, is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, no. What we would call those contractions are Braxton Hicks contractions. Braxton Hicks contractions are just warm-up contractions. They're your body kind of getting used to it, getting in the groove, figuring out what to do. It hasn't quite established a system for it yet, or they're maybe not strong enough to help your cervix to thin out and dilate. But they are doing something, and that's your body's way of telling you, hey, I'm getting there, but I'm not quite there yet. If you can ignore them, ignore them. There is no reason for you to go to the hospital when your contractions are irregular. If you can talk through them, don't even time them, don't waste your time, because when labor actually comes, you will know. Labor amps up from the Braxton Hicks contractions, where all of a sudden it's all consuming, you can't focus, you can't concentrate, somebody's talking to you and you have no idea what they're doing, they're not, right? Versus you kind of being able to be like, hold on, ouch, I'm really uncomfortable. The other tip I have for you when you think you might be having early labor or Braxton Hicks contractions where they're not super regular is to drink lots of water. Water, speaking of, I'm really thirsty. So refreshing. Your uterus is a muscle. It's also a very sensitive muscle. So if you're dehydrated, your uterus might contract and cause these little tightening contractions. They might actually even be pretty intense. Drink a bunch of water and then wait a little bit and see if they go away. I can't tell you how many times I've been in the hospital where somebody comes in, especially premature, concerned that they have contractions. It's been a hot day, they've been out exercising, they haven't been paying attention to their water intake, and then all of a sudden we give them an IV with some fluid and voila, their contractions went away. Make sure you're drinking lots of water. Pay attention to the contractions only when you can't help but pay attention to them. And then know that labor by definition is when you have contractions that change your cervix. So I hope that answered the question, what is labor? If you have any other comments or questions or other ideas for other videos or questions that you want answered by me, please feel free to comment below. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye. What is going on? Labor. Okay. And thanks for watching. I will see you soon. Okay, let us go.